Rain fell hard in the elven village that night, and the wind carried a cold that did not belong to spring. The village was quiet and peaceful. Yet something heavy moved through the air, like a warning that no one could see inside the old wooden tavern. Warm firelight danced on the walls, and elves talked softly while a bard played a gentle tune on his silver harp. Everyone felt safe until the tavern door shook under a slow, powerful knock. The sound froze. Every voice inside the bard stopped playing. The harp string vibrated in the still air, and every elf turned toward the door with wide eyes. No travelers were expected, and no one visited this forest at night. Especially not humans. The tavern keeper, an old elf named Roland, felt a strange fear rising in his chest. His hands trembled as he wiped a wooden mug, and he stared at the door as if it would burst open at any moment. Another knock came, heavier than before, and this time the enchanted lanterns hanging on the beams flickered like they sensed danger. Roland stepped forward slowly, and the elf crowd whispered behind him, "Only elves entered this tavern for 100 years. Only elves walked this path of the ancient forest." But tonight someone else had arrived. Roland opened the door. A tall figure stood in the rain, his dark cloak soaked and dripping, his face hid under the hood, but his eyes glowed faintly like dying embers in a cold fireplace. He stepped inside without a word, and the door shut behind him with a soft thud. Even though no one touched it, the wind outside stopped. The rain softened. It felt like the world itself was holding its breath. The elves stared at him, unsure if he was friend or danger. The stranger did not look around. He simply walked toward the fire with slow, steady steps, and sat on the stone bench closest to the flames. His cloak steamed as the heat touched it, and faint markings showed on his sleeves, markings no elf could recognize. The bard lowered his harp and spoke first, his voice shaking. "Stranger, why have you come to the village of the elves?" The human lifted his head slightly, but still did not speak. He looked around the tavern with calm eyes, but those eyes seemed too old, too tired to knowing. It was as if he had seen 1,000 winters and walked through battles older than this village. Mira, an elven girl who served food, stepped toward him carefully. She felt a strange pull in her chest, like she knew this man or had seen him in a dream long ago. She placed a bowl of warm stew near him and whispered gently, "Traveler, you look cold. You should eat." For the first time the stranger moved. He touched the bowl with slow fingers. He did not lift it. He did not eat. Instead, he breathed in the smell and whispered in a soft voice that chilled every heart in the tavern, "This herb should not exist. The war destroyed it." The elves gasped. Roland stepped back. The bard dropped his harp. Mira froze. The herb he spoke of was used only before the Great War that never happened, a war erased from memory by ancient magic. No elf remembered the details. No elf knew the truth. Yet every elf knew that speaking of it was forbidden. How did this human know? How could he know? The stranger lowered his hood slowly. His face was pale and marked with faint lines like ash had stained his skin long ago. His eyes glowed brighter now, and every elf stepped back as if their instincts screamed at them. He looked at the fire with heavy sadness and spoke again. "I did not come here to harm you. I did not come here to ask for shelter. I came because something has awakened, and it is coming for this village." The room filled with silence so deep it felt like time itself stopped. Mira stared at him and felt something old inside her stir, like a memory she never lived. "What is coming?" she asked, her voice soft but brave. The stranger lifted his gaze to her. In that moment, the fire dipped low, and the shadows in the tavern stretched long across the floor. His eyes held a truth darker than winter nights, a truth that no elf was ready to hear. He whispered, "The curse of the forgotten king has returned, and it follows me everywhere I go." The fire roared suddenly as if answering his words, and the enchanted door behind him shook violently. Without warning, every elf jumped. Mira covered her mouth. Roland stumbled backward, and the bard held his harp tight with trembling hands. Someone or something was outside, and it had followed the stranger to the tavern door. The enchanted tavern door kept shaking, as if an unseen hand struck it again, and, again, elves pressed together in fear, their eyes wide and their breaths shallow. No one dared to speak, no one dared to move. Only the fire crackled weakly like it too was afraid of the thing waiting outside. The stranger did not stand. He only turned his head toward the door, the glowing light in his eyes dimming, as if he already knew what followed him. Roland. The tavern keeper stepped back from the bar and whispered in a shaky voice, "What is that?" The stranger answered, in a voice low and ancient. A reminder of a war that never happened. The elves stared at him with confusion and fear. They had heard stories of the Great War, but every story stopped halfway, as if someone had torn the ending away. The songs did not speak of it. The books had missing pages. The elders only said the past was sealed for the safety of the future, yet this human spoke as if he had walked through it. Mira stepped closer to him, even though her hands trembled. Her heart beat fast, not from fear, but from something unknown, something pushing her toward him. She asked softly, "How can a war never happen and still leave something behind?" The stranger looked at her with tired eyes, because it was forced to disappear, but not destroyed. Magic can hide truth, but it cannot kill it. The tavern door stopped shaking. A long breath of silence filled the room. Then a scraping sound echoed outside, like claws dragging across stone. Every elf, jumped the youngest, hid behind their mothers. Roland grabbed an old wooden staff, though he knew it would not save him. Mira felt her throat tighten, but she did not step away. From the stranger, she could not explain why, but she felt safer near him than anywhere else. The stranger lifted one hand, and the fire responded by rising higher, casting bright orange light across the tavern. He stood slowly. His dark cloak fell back and revealed armor under it, an armor made of black metal with cracks of dull silver running through it. Armor no one in the Elven lands had ever seen. He faced the door and spoke again. "I traveled far to warn you. Something was released when the seal of the Forgotten King weakened. Something hungry. Something that remembers me." Mira swallowed the fear in her throat and whispered, "You speak as if you were there." The stranger did not look at her. His eyes stayed on the door. His voice held the weight of centuries. "Because I was shock ran through the tavern like lightning." No one spoke, no one breathed. Could a human live that long? Could anyone live through a vanished war? Before anyone could question him, a cold whisper passed through the tavern like wind, even though the windows were shut. The whisper had no voice, yet everyone heard it, a single word, Ashandar. The bard fell to his knees, his harp slipping from his hands. He stared at the stranger with terror. He spoke the name everyone feared to even think. The name of the cursed royal line, the name erased from all songs, the name that ended the last age of magic. The elves backed away from the stranger, now fear turning to dread. Roland raised his staff, though his hands shook. "Who are you?" The stranger finally turned from the door, and his voice was soft, almost mournful. "I am the last witness of Ashandar. I am the one who walked through the war that never happened, and I am the one it refuses to forget." Before anyone could speak, the tavern lanterns flickered violently. The shadows twisted and stretched on the walls. Mira grabbed the stranger's arm without thinking. Her voice trembled. "What does it want?" The stranger looked down at her hand, then back at the door. His voice grew colder. "It wants what it lost. It wants the bloodline, and it knows the bloodline is here." Mira froze. She felt a strange burn on her chest, right where a hidden birthmark lay beneath her clothes, a mark her mother always told her never to show. A mark shaped like a spiral, made of 3 broken lines. The same symbol the elves believed was cursed. She felt it pulsing now, like it was waking up. The scraping sound returned louder, closer. The wood of the door bent inward, as if something massive pressed against it. Roland shouted, "We must run," but the stranger shook his head. "No. It is too late for running. It has found us." He stepped in front of the door and raised one hand. Silver cracks glowed across his armor. His shadow stretched unnaturally across the tavern floor for a moment. No one knew if he was human or something older. Mira whispered. In fear and wonder, "What are you?" he answered, without turning around. "I am the memory that survived the forgotten." Age, and tonight the past will open its eyes again." As he said that, the tavern door exploded inward, and darkness poured through like smoke that moved with purpose and hunger. The elves screamed, Mira gasped, and the stranger stood alone against the shadow that came for them all. Darkness poured through the broken tavern door like living smoke, twisting and curling around the tables and beams. It had no form, yet its presence pushed against every chest, stealing breath and hope from the elves inside. Candles died without whisper. The fire shrank into a small, trembling flame. The enchanted lanterns flickered like frightened birds trapped in cages of light. The stranger did not step back. Mira stood behind him, her hand trembling near his cloak, yet she refused to move away. Roland pressed himself against the far wall, clutching his wooden staff, even though he knew it was useless. The bard crawled backward, dragging his harp, as if the strings themselves could save him. A voice rose from the darkness, not loud, not deep. A whisper that felt like cold fingers on the neck. Ashandar. The elves covered their ears, yet the whisper went straight into their minds. The stranger lifted one hand, and silver cracks sparked across his armor. The darkness recoiled slightly, like it had touched fire. Mira stared at the light around him, and whispered softly, "Your armor, it feels alive," the stranger replied, in a tired voice. "It remembers pain better than I do." The shadow moved again, sliding across the tavern floor like a monstrous tide. The stranger knelt and placed his palm on the wooden planks. The wood glowed faintly, and a deep hum rose from beneath the tavern. Everyone froze, not from fear, but from shock. Because the tavern floor was singing a slow, ancient melody vibrated through the planks. Soft at first, then louder, then clear, like 100 voices hidden beneath the floor. Elven runes glowed between the boards, and Mira felt her breath catch. She recognized the melody. Every elf recognized it. It was the forbidden song, the song of the Ashandar royal line. A song erased from every elven archive, yet the wood remembered, and now it sang. The darkness hissed with fury, twisting rapidly around the room. Every table shook, mugs toppled to the ground. Roland cried out, "Stop that song, it will bring the curse." But the stranger kept his hand on the floor. His eyes glowed in answer to the melody. He spoke without looking up. "The curse is already here." The shadow slammed against the stranger like a storm. The tavern walls bent, the ceiling beams cracked. Mira stumbled, but caught herself on a chair. The stranger remained steady, though the pressure against him grew stronger. The glowing cracks across his armor widened. He pushed his hand deeper into the floor, and the singing voice grew even louder. The tavern itself seemed to wake from a long-forgotten sleep. The floorboards shifted, dust rose from the corners. Hidden runes lit up across the walls. It felt like the building was remembering its purpose. The bard whispered in terror, "This tavern was once a shrine to the Ashandar bloodline. We had no idea." The stranger finally lifted his hand. The song stopped, but the runes remained shining with pale blue light. The darkness froze, as if the sudden silence had stunned it. Mira stepped forward, the glowing runes reflected in her eyes. Her voice shook. "Why does the tavern know your name?" The stranger did not answer immediately. He looked at the darkness, which began to coil tighter, as if preparing a final strike. Then he spoke quietly, "Because I was born here. Because I was hidden here. Because this place was built to protect me from the curse I failed to stop." Shock rippled through the elves. Roland gasped, "You are one of them, one of the Ashandar, one of the cursed." The stranger rose to his full height. His shadow stretched unnaturally long across the glowing floor. "I am the last of the line. And the curse has followed me across every land." The darkness shrieked, a sound that shattered the remaining lanterns. Glass rained across the tavern. The elves screamed. Mira shielded her face. The stranger stood firm, the silver cracks on his armor blazing with white light. He shouted enough, the darkness halted, then slowly it retreated toward the open door, like a beast forced back by fire. Not defeated, not gone, only waiting. When the last wisp of shadow slipped into the rain, the tavern fell silent. Only the faint hum of the runes remained, a reminder of the power that had awakened. Mira looked at the stranger, her voice fragile. Why did the shadow leave? The stranger turned to her, his eyes filled with an ache that did not belong to any ordinary man. It did not leave it obeyed. It was called here. It was warned to step back by the only thing it fears. Mira stared at him, confused. What does it fear? The stranger placed a hand on the glowing floor. His voice dropped into a whisper that felt like the breath of an old prophecy. It fears the true heir. It fears the one who can end the curse, the one it lost long ago. Mira felt a burning pulse under her skin, near her hidden birthmark. A painful truth pressed against her mind. She whispered, "Who is the true heir?" The stranger looked at her, his gaze heavy. His voice soft, and his answer shattered the air. "In the tavern you are." Mira stood frozen as the stranger's words echoed through the silent tavern. "You are the true heir. The one the shadow fears." Her heart pounded so hard she felt each beat shake her ribs. Roland stared at her in shock. The bard dropped his harp again. Every elf in the room stepped back, as if destiny itself had just walked into the tavern wearing Mira's face. Mira whispered in a trembling voice, "Me. How can I be the heir? I am only a village girl." The stranger watched her with heavy eyes filled with old sorrow. He pointed at her chest, where her hidden birthmark pulsed under her tunic with faint blue light. "Your mark is the sign the forgotten king placed it on every child of Ashandar blood. Only the true heir awakens." Mira shook her head, trying to deny the truth, but the mark burned again like a hot ember. She felt the tavern wall spin, and she stumbled backward, gripping the edge of a table. The shadow had followed the stranger. But the shadow had searched for her, not him, her. Before she could speak, the tavern door rattled again. Not from shadow, but from something heavy moving outside. The villagers outside shouted. A roar echoed through the forest. Something far larger than the shadow crawled across the ground. The stranger stepped forward. "There is no time. If she is the heir, she must awaken the blade." Roland blinked in confusion. "What blade?" The stranger raised his hand and pointed toward the fire pit in the center of the tavern. The fire pit that burned every hour of every day since the tavern was built, the one no elf ever touched. The stranger whispered, "The blade of Ashandar lies beneath the fire." Gasps filled the room. The bard shook his head. "Impossible. The fire pit is sacred. We are not allowed to disturb it." The stranger placed his hand on Mira's shoulder. "Only the heir can touch it. Only the heir can reveal the blade. If she does not claim it, the curse will take her, and the village will fall tonight." Mira looked at the fire pit. The flames crackled softly, unaware of the chaos around them. Her legs shook. Her breath was unsteady, but she nodded. Something inside her pulled her toward the fire like an invisible hand, as if her blood remembered what her mind had forgotten. She stepped closer. The heat brushed her skin, but did not burn. The flames flickered strangely as she approached, as if greeting her. The elves watched, holding their breath. The stranger moved beside her, ready to catch her if she fell. Her voice was soft and trembling. "What must I do?" The stranger spoke gently. "Place your hand in the fire." The elf screamed. Roland grabbed his staff. "No, she will die. Oh, the heat will destroy her hand." But the stranger shook his head. "The heir cannot be burned by the fire of Ashandar. If she is not the heir, the flames will reject her. If she is the heir, they will show the blade." Mira inhaled deeply. Fear filled her, but something stronger pushed her forward. A strange courage, a strange confidence, like a whisper in her soul, telling her to trust. She reached out her hand. The fire roared, as if alive. She hesitated, then pushed her hand into the heart of the flames. Elves cried out. Roland covered his face. The bard collapsed to his knees. But Mira did not scream. She did not feel pain. The fire wrapped around her fingers like warm water. The stranger whispered, "Good. Listen to it. Let the flames speak." The fire dimmed, then glowed bright blue. The entire tavern flooded with blue light. The flames parted, and Mira gasped. "They're hidden under the ashes." A black stone handle with silver cracks pulsing like veins. The stranger whispered, "The blade of Ashandar. It has waited for centuries." Mira gripped the handle. It felt cold, then warm. Then it fit perfectly into her hand, like it belonged to her, like it had always belonged to her. She pulled the tavern floor, shook the fire, exploded upward, and the blade slid out from the earth, releasing a wave of ancient power that blew out every lantern. Elves screamed and fell. Even the stranger staggered. Mira held the sword, black stone, silver cracks of light. A blade forged from cursed magic and lost destiny. It hummed with power. It hummed with her heartbeat. For the first time, the mark on her chest stopped burning and felt calm. The stranger knelt. He bowed his head to her. Every elf stared with wide eyes. The bard whispered the forbidden words. The heir has awakened. The blade Ashandar lives again, but before Mira could breathe, a roar echoed from outside. A massive shadow moved through the tree's branches, snapped under its weight. The stranger rose quickly, his voice firm. Mira, the blade answered. You now, the past will hunt you. Be ready. The roar sounded again. Closer, louder. Something ancient had returned, and it was coming straight for the tavern. The roar outside shook the tavern walls like thunder from a monster that had slept for centuries. Rain hammered the roof. Wind howled through. The broken door elves huddled together, their faces pale with fear. Inside, Mira stood with the black stone blade in her hand. Its silver cracks pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat matching her own. The stranger stepped beside her, his eyes glowing brighter now, as if the sword's awakening had stirred something inside him. To Roland pointed at the open doorway, his voice trembling. What creature is out there? What have we brought upon ourselves? The stranger answered without looking away from Mira, not brought, returned. And it is here because the blade has chosen its heir. Another roar echoed across the village, louder, this time shaking. Dust from the tavern rafters. Mira tightened her grip on the sword. Though her hands trembled, her birthmark glowed under her. Closed with soft blue light, as if trying to speak to her, she could not hide anymore. She could not pretend anymore. The bard finally stood and pointed at Mira. You said, the blade answered her. But how can a simple girl be the heir of Ashandar? How is it possible? The stranger turned to Mira and spoke gently. Show them your mark. Mira swallowed hard. Fear curled in her chest. She had hidden the mark her whole life. Her mother warned her never to reveal it. Never to let anyone see, never to let it shine. But tonight, everything had changed. She slowly pulled aside the cloth covering her chest. The elves gasped in unison. A glowing spiral mark made of 3 broken lines pulsed softly on her skin. The ancient royal symbol, the forbidden sign, the curse mark of Ashandar. Roland staggered backward. The bard covered his mouth. Some elves fell to their knees. Others whispered prayers. Mira stepped back, her voice shaking. I did not know what it meant. My mother told me it was dangerous. She told me to never speak of it. The stranger lowered his gaze. Your mother hid you for your own safety. The curse hunts every blood heir. The shadow hunts every blood heir, and the creature outside hunts the one who wakes the blade. Mira looked at him, confusion and fear mixing together. But who are you in this story? What are you? Why do you know so much? The stranger hesitated. His eyes dimmed, as if a heavy memory returned to him. He reached for his glove and slowly pulled it off. Mira gasped. The elves gasped. Even the bard stumbled backward. On the back of his hand, glowing faintly under the skin, was the exact same spiral mark, the mark of Ashandar, the mark she had. The mark she thought only she carried. Mira whispered, You carry it. To the stranger nodded slowly. But his mark pulsed with a deeper, older light, a light full of pain. A light full of ancient responsibility. He whispered, I am not only the last witness, I am the last protector before the forgotten war erased itself. I swore to find the next heir. I swore to protect the bloodline, even if it cost me my name. Mira felt her breath catch. So you are, he finished her words. Ashandar blood just like you. She stared at him with disbelief. Then something clicked in her memory, a dream she always had as a child. A shadow protecting her, a voice calling her by a name she never learned, a feeling of being watched but never harmed. She whispered, Have you been following me all my life? The stranger looked away in sorrow. Yes. From a distance, always protecting, always hiding, waiting for the blade to call you the elves, murmured some with fear. Some with respect. Roland stepped forward. If you are both heirs, then the curse will now hunt both of you. Before the stranger could speak, the roar outside cracked the sky again. A massive shape moved past the window, branches snapped. Trees bent, the ground rumbled. Mira's fear deepened. What creature is this? Why is it after us? The stranger stepped closer, his eyes serious. It is called the Bone-Fang Beast. The king's curse turned it into a guardian of rage. It hunts heirs, it destroys villages where the blade awakens, and it never stops. Mira felt her knees weaken. Her voice trembled. How do we stop it? The stranger looked at her sword, then at his mark, then at her mark. He whispered. Together, the tavern lights flickered. The runes on the floor pulsed the ground, shook the creature, roared again, outside this time so close it felt like the breath of a giant was crawling into the tavern. The stranger stepped in front of Mira, his voice strong. The blade awakened for you. The mark awakened for you. The past calls for you, but I will stand with you until the end. Mira lifted the black stone blade. A spark of courage lit inside her, despite the terror, despite the weight. Despite the fate she never asked for, the stranger placed his glowing, marked hand on the blade. Their marks pulsed together. The blade hummed like a heartbeat shared between two souls. Outside, the creature roared. One more time, shaking the earth. It was coming, and nothing would stop it now. The Bone-Fang Beast roared outside again. The sound rolled across the elven village like a storm made of fear. Windows rattled, dust fell from tavern beams. Even the enchanted lanterns struggled to stay lit. Inside the tavern, Mira stood with the black stone blade glowing faintly in her hand. The stranger stood beside her, his marked hands still resting on the sword. Their united marks pulsed with a strange rhythm to heartbeats shared. To destinies merging, Roland pointed toward the doorway in terror. We cannot fight that creature inside the tavern. It will crush us. The stranger nodded. We must leave this place. The blade will not show its true power trapped between walls. It must meet the open air. It must see the sky. The elves hesitated. Some begged Mira not to go. Others whispered prayers. But Mira stepped forward despite the fear twisting inside her chest. Something ancient inside her whispered, step into the night air. Your destiny waits in the shadows. The stranger pushed open the broken tavern door. Cold wind and rain rushed inside. The village was dark and silent, except for distant roars shaking the trees. The creature was close to close. Mira stepped into the rain. The drops hit her blade and sizzled like they touched hot stone. The stranger walked beside her, silent and determined. A faint glow wrapped around his armor. His shadow stretched unnaturally long across the wet ground. Roland and the other elves stayed behind. They closed the tavern door, but before it shut, Mira heard the bard shout, "Find the burning tree, only it knows the truth. Only it knows how to break the curse." The stranger froze. He turned to Mira, his voice quiet. The bard is right. We must go to the burning tree. Mira frowned. What is the burning tree? The stranger answered as they walked down the muddy path. It is the oldest tree in the forest. It holds memories. Older than elves, older than humans, older than magic itself. It stands where the first curse was born. Mira felt a chill. Is that where the forgotten king died? The stranger nodded yes, and where the truth of his curse was sealed away. The rain grew heavier. Thunder cracked overhead. The path twisted through the deep forest where glowing mushrooms lit the ground. Strange shadows moved between the trees. The forest felt alive, watching, waiting. Mira's heart raced every time she lifted the blade. It glowed brighter, as if pointing toward something. A strange pull guided her steps. Almost like the sword knew where it needed to go. The stranger watched her carefully. The blade chooses the path, follow it, ere they reached a clearing. In the center stood a massive ancient tree. Its bark deep black, its branches twisted like the ribs of some forgotten beast. The tree glowed with faint red veins, and even under the rain, The tree-burned flame rose slowly from its trunk. Not wild flame calm, flame gentle, controlled like a candle of truth in the middle of darkness. Mira's breath caught this tree. It is alive and burning. The stranger nodded. This is the burning tree of truth, the heart of the curse, the witness of history. Suddenly, the flames brightened, as if greeting them. A pulse of red light swept across the clearing. The forest went silent. The beast roared in the distance. Closer than before time was running out, the stranger placed his hand on the tree. His mark glowed. The tree answered with a deep hum. Shaking the ground, he whispered to Mira, "Place your blade against the bark. Let the tree show you the truth." Mira stepped toward the tree. Her blade trembled in her hand. The runes along its cracks pulsed like a heartbeat. She pressed the blade against the burning bark. The world changed. The trees faded. The sky vanished. The rain stopped. Mira stood in a memory, not a dream. Not an illusion, a real moment from the forgotten past. She saw a king with silver hair and glowing eyes, a crown made of cracked stone. A sword matching hers. The king shouted at shadows surrounding him, "I will not let the bloodline end. I will seal the curse into myself. Let it take me, but spare my heirs." Mira watched in horror. The bone-fang beast was once an elf, once a guardian, but the curse twisted him, turned him into a monster bound to hunt the heirs. She saw the king fall, saw him thrust his sword into the burning tree, saw the curse split, then run through the roots. Saw his mark travel through the generations until it reached her. Mira gasped, and the vision vanished. She fell to her knees. The stranger caught her. He whispered, "You saw it. You saw the truth." Mira trembled. "The beast is cursed. It is not evil. It is trapped." The stranger nodded yes, and only the heir can free it and end the curse. A thunderous roar shook the forest. The bone-fang beast burst into the clearing, its massive body covered in bone armor, its glowing eyes full of blind rage. It charged. Mira lifted the blade. Her mark burned with fierce light. The stranger stood beside her, his mark glowing too. Together, they faced the ancient cursed beast. Destiny stood between the flames and the storm, and the next moment would decide the fate of the forest. The bone-fang beast charged into the clearing with a roar that shook the earth. Its bone armor glowed faint blue, its horns sharp like blades, its claws tearing the ground with every step. Rain hit its body and turned to steam. Branches snapped under its weight. The forest bent away from it like trees feared its rage. Mira stood in front of the burning tree, the black stone blade glowing in her hands. Her birthmark burned with white fire. The stranger stepped beside her, his mark shining just as bright. Both marks pulsed together, both destinies rising as one. The beast roared again, lowering its head, aiming its massive horns straight at Mira. The stranger shouted, "Do not run, stand your ground." The blade nosed the way, but Mira could barely breathe. Her heart pounded, her legs shook. She had never held a sword before tonight. She had never fought anything. And now she faced a monster from a forgotten age. She whispered, "I cannot do this. I am too afraid." The stranger stepped closer. His voice steady. "Fear does not choose you. Destiny does. You are the heir of Ashandar. And tonight, the curse ends." The beast leaped, its huge body flying through the rain. At the last moment, Mira lifted the blade. A burst of white light exploded from it. The impact sent shockwaves across the clearing. The trees bent, the ground cracked. The flames of the burning tree flared higher. The beast was thrown back, not wounded, but confused. It roared again, shaking its skull. Mira gasped. Falling to her knees, the stranger pulled her up. "The blade reacted to your fear control. It guided. Do not let it guide you." The beast circled them, moving slowly now, its glowing eyes fixed on Mira, not with hatred, but with something deeper, something trapped. Something begging. Mira felt it. She whispered, "It is crying inside. It does not want to kill." The stranger nodded. "The vision showed you the truth. The beast was once a guardian, once loyal to your bloodline. But when the king sealed the curse, he became its prisoner." Mira stepped forward. The stranger grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" Mira shook her head. "I will not kill a soul trapped by magic." "I must free him," the beast roared again, and charged. Mira closed her eyes and lifted the blade one more time. This time she did not fight. This time she guided the light. The blade glowed pure white. Her birthmark shone like a star. The beast reached her, its giant jaws opened, its claws raised. Mira whispered, "Be free." The white light exploded outward. The roar of the beasts changed, not rage but pain. Pain mixed with relief. The ground shook. The sky brightened. Rain froze in the air for a moment. Then the beast collapsed. Its bone armor cracked. The cursed smoke escaped from its chest. The monster cried one final time, then went still. Mira stumbled forward, her hands shaking, the blade dimming in her grip. The stranger knelt beside the beast. He whispered, "The curse leaves the body only when the heir commands it. You freed him. You did what no king could do." Mira looked at the beast, its massive form shrinking, bones dissolving, the fury fading. And under the cracked armor, she saw an elf, a guardian. His face peaceful for the first time in centuries. Tears filled Mira's eyes. The stranger touched her shoulder. "Tonight, the curse breaks, but one more step remains." The ground under the burning tree split open. A glowing path of light spread through the roots. The trees bowed, the air trembled, the forest itself recognized her. The burning tree spoke in a voice older than mountains. "Heir of Ashandar, take your place, restore the throne, end the forgotten age." The stranger guided her toward the glowing roots. The blade hummed. Her mark burned. She stepped into the light. The forest vanished. The rain stopped. She stood inside a hall made of ancient stone. Tall pillars, golden light, elven symbols, a throne carved from roots and silver. The stranger stood beside her. "This is the throne room hidden for ages." The heart of Ashandar. Mira looked around in awe. The hall felt alive, warm, powerful, waiting. The stranger knelt before her. He lowered his head. He spoke with full respect. "Heir of Ashandar, the throne is yours." The throne glowed softly, calling to her. She stepped toward it slowly. Each step echoed like fate itself walking beside her. She sat. The blade rested across her lap. Her mark glowed bright. The hall filled with light. Outside in the real world, the village tavern transformed. Walls shifted, wood turned to polished stone, lanterns became crystal lights. The tavern turned into the ancient throne room of Ashandar. The elves outside fell to their knees. Roland whispered, "The age of Ashandar returns. The heir has risen." The stranger stood before Mira and finally smiled. "You have ended the curse. You have awakened the throne. The forest is safe, and so are we." Mira lifted the blade. A new queen, a new age, the forgotten war, finally at peace.